In today's video, we'll be going over 10 common myths about dogs. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is a very common myth and it's simply not true. Now, some dogs, very few, are not trainable, and we'll discuss that next, but for most dogs, this is a myth. When working with our dogs, there are two main areas this is going to be referring to: obedience and behavioral issues. Now, you can train just about any dog with obedience if you follow the step-by-step process that I teach in my manual as well as on my YouTube channel. However, when working on a behavioral issue, having an older dog can change the process. For example, if you have a young puppy and that puppy starts to practice a bad behavior, as long as you stop the pup the first time they try it, they realize it's not worth doing and it becomes the behavior of the past. But an older dog, let's say you have an 8-year-old dog that's been chewing on furniture his or her entire life. Now when we try to stop that dog, it's going to believe that it's a fun activity because it's been doing that behavior for so long, and it's going to take additional training to get the dog to stop doing that behavior. But it doesn't mean that we cannot train an older dog, and it doesn't mean that we can't stop an older dog from practicing a bad behavior they've been doing their entire life. Every dog is trainable. Now, most dogs are trainable, but not every dog. There's a great example in the book, For the Love of a Dog, Understanding Emotion in You and Your Best Friend by Patricia McConnell, which I highly recommend, and I'll be sure to leave a link in the description of this video if you'd like to get a copy of her book. She has a story about a pit bull that at the age of 5 weeks, the first owners thought that it would be funny to give this puppy cocaine. Well, of course it wasn't funny. It almost killed the pup and caused significant damage to his brain. A year later, Patricia met this dog with his new owner over possession-related aggression. In the first meeting with the dog, the owner dumped a bunch of toys on the ground and asked Patricia to watch. The dog's response was so extreme that all they could do was watch. He would lunge forward and move at them and growl even if they were to move slightly. They worked with this dog and Patricia was determined to do anything that she could to help. She told the owner to reach out at any time, day or night, and that's exactly what the owner did. The following Friday, she called in a panic. According to Patricia, she sounded like a kidnapped victim who had snuck away from her abductor to call 911. Long story short, Patricia and an animal control friend showed up just in time to help the owner and secure the dog. As Karen puts it, overwhelmed with both adrenaline and sadness, Karen, Esther, and I stroked Frisco while he slipped off to his final rest. Karen had done all she could to give him a good life, but I told her then, and I'll repeat it now, Frisco's first owners had killed him long ago when they fried his poor young brain. It just took him a long time to die. Now, this is an extreme and rare example, but as I mentioned, most dogs are trainable. But due to early trauma, such as with this pup, it is possible for a dog to be rendered untrainable. It's all about how you raise them. Now, of course, just like with humans, nurture plays an enormous role in the development of our dogs. For example, science has shown that simply touching and holding our dogs, often when they're puppies, in fact, this seems to be true with all mammals, it can greatly increase the amount of serotonin they produce, which in turn, the less aggressive they'll be as adults. In addition, the more we train a dog as a puppy, the easier it is for them to learn new tasks as they get older. Just look at the video where I teach my dog Ari to ring a bell. It literally only took her 15 minutes. Now, this has a big part to do with her genetics, but also the continued training that I've done with her since she was a puppy. However, nature also plays a massive role. There's a reason why most police dogs are German Shepherds, Malinois, and Dutch Shepherds, and it's not because of the way they look. It's because they have the genetic traits that make them best suited for the job. In my dog training manual at the end of chapter 7, I have a chart that gives the reader an idea of how genetics may affect the training. Let's take a look at one of them. The large spectrum represents the max amount that could be reached in either direction. 100% fearful on one side and 100% confident on the other. The smaller chart represents that dog's individual limitations, meaning for this example, he or she could only get to 90% confident, even with all the confidence building in the world, and can only drop to about 40% in confidence, even with zero confident training exercises. However, like in the example with Frisco, drugs and other dramatic events in the early development of a pup could lower that dog's genetic limitations. This is important to keep in mind when looking for the right dog to fit your needs. Now, some of these points may seem like common sense, but many people need reminders about these factors. It's not all about how cute your new pup is. If you lead an active lifestyle, for example, get a dog that can keep up with you. You may want a Vizsla. And that's just one example of many breeds that are excellent for an active lifestyle. By contrast, if you lead a life that is less active, perhaps if you work at home on the computer all day, a Vizsla may not be a good idea. Instead, a Golden Retriever could be a better idea. It would have enough energy, but it wouldn't go into overdrive by never having an off switch. Another factor is intelligence. Without directly insulting any of our canine friends, the unfortunate truth is that some dogs just are not as smart as others. Now, getting the most intelligent dog could seem like the best idea, but if you don't keep that advanced brain constantly working, such a dog could become destructive. On the other hand, a smart dog could also be a great joy to own. These are, again, factors that depend on your personal preferences and lifestyle. So, as you can see, it's not the dog, it's how you raise them, is a huge misconception. My dog knows he did something wrong because he looks guilty. The most common story that I hear comes from an owner that comes home, there's a mess, and the dog is by the door looking guilty. Eyes are squinting, they're submissive, the head and tail is down. Usually the mess is from the dog relieving themselves, chewing on the furniture, or getting into the trash. The human assumes that the body language is proof that their dog knows they did something bad. However, this body language is not guilt, but rather appeasement. The dog has learned that the owner is angry when there's a mess. However, the dog hasn't connected that it's the behavior of making the mess that's causing the issue. So out of fear, the dog cowers by the door, hoping that will prevent the owner from yelling and getting mad at them. This is why clear communication is so important. Here's an analogy I like to use to explain this process to people. Let's say that you became a prisoner of war in a foreign country where you don't speak the same language. You have a prison cell with a toilet, you use that toilet every day, no issues. One day you become bored and you start to carve on the wall. One of the guards sees you carving on the wall, runs into your cell, yelling at you in a language you don't understand. They grab you and they shove your face into the toilet. Are you going to think that they shoved your face into the toilet because you used the toilet? Or are you going to think that they're shoving your face into the toilet because you were carving on the wall? Because that's what you were doing when they started to yell at you. My dog is untrainable and there is nothing I can do about its bad behavior. As mentioned earlier, some dogs are in fact untrainable. However, this is incredibly rare. Often the dog learns that a particular behavior will result in a specific outcome, so they continue to practice it, which strengthens that action. And the owner simply doesn't have the knowledge or experience to work through the obedience or behavioral problems. To make matters worse, if something has been working for a dog for a long time and one day it doesn't, that dog may amp up the behavior to get what they want, because in their mind, the behavior still works, but suddenly requires extra effort. Therefore, it can get worse before it gets better. This is known as an extinction burst. The behavior becomes more intense before it drops off. Let me share a quick story with you that illustrates this. Back in 2013, I had a client that had a 2-year-old American Bulldog. This dog did not like having a leash on him and would fight tooth and nail to prevent anyone from putting a leash on him or keeping a leash on him. When the dog was 8 weeks of age, the owner reached out to a local dog trainer. Unfortunately for her and the dog, she reached out to a fake dog trainer. I say this because I looked up the trainer, and this person had no training or experience and only used her dog training website to promote her small hometown band. During the first session, this trainer said, "This dog is unfixable and you need to euthanize him." Needless to say, the owner did not euthanize her puppy, but she did give up on training him, at least until it got so bad that she felt the need to hire another trainer. The first time I placed a leash on this dog wasn't easy. He started jumping up, biting at me as well as the leash. I refused to allow this bad behavior to work, kept the leash on him, and took him home for a training program. It took me about 3 weeks to get this dog to accept the leash as a new part of his life, and during the process, about 2 weeks into training while on a walk, he decided to amp up the bad behavior. This was his extinction burst. He first tried biting at the leash as usual, but this time when it didn't work, he jumped up, stood on his hind legs, grabbed me by my arm with his paws. He was right here and he growled directly at my face. I'll be honest, I was a little nervous in that moment, but Lucky for me, this dog was not actually aggressive. He just learned to act aggressively to get what he wanted. So I continued working with him, and now this dog can walk like a true perfect gentleman while on leash. Now, I understand this is another extreme example, but things like this can and do happen. Keep that in mind. The longer your dog practices a bad behavior, the longer it'll take to fix. So don't ignore it for 2 years, and if you don't have the tools to fix it yourself, hire a local professional dog trainer. Your dog won't respect you if they sleep in your bed. Dogs, just like humans, are social creatures, and dogs also feel a sense of security when they sleep with the rest of their family. I've always allowed my dogs to sleep at the foot of my bed, and never once have any of my dogs lost respect for me. And by lost respect, I'm assuming they mean the dog will no longer listen to you. If you train your dog and work with them on a regular basis, your dog should and will listen to your commands. When a dog doesn't listen to you, it's not a sign that the dog doesn't respect you, but rather your failure to train your dog. Lastly, as my good friend and exceptional trainer Bethany Perdome says, it's not a problem unless it's a problem. Meaning, if there are no issues, don't worry about it. However, if your dog starts to resource guard the bed, now it's a problem, which would require some adjustments as well as additional training. I need to show my dog who's boss by being the alpha. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Having a dog has nothing to do with being the alpha and everything to do with teamwork. In fact, David Meach, a professional wildlife biologist, who is the one that introduced the idea of the alpha male in his 1970 book, The Wolf, later stated in a 1999 paper, "I conclude that the typical wolf pack is a family, with the adult parents guiding the activities of the group in the division of labor system, in which the female predominates primarily in such activities as pup care and defense, and the male primarily during foraging and food provisioning and the travels associated with them." In nature, Meach writes, as offsprings begin to mature, they disperse from the pack as young as 9 months of age. Most disperse when 1 to 2 years old, and few remain beyond 3 years. In the wild, most wolves disperse from their natal packs and attempt to pair with other dispersed wolves, producing pups, and start their own packs. Simply put, the male and female act as the pack's alpha because they are the parents. So just how parents try to educate and guide their children so they can be successful in life, we as dog owners need to raise and train our dogs so they too can be successful in life. It's too early to start training my dog. Often clients tell me that they didn't start to train their puppy because they thought or someone told them not to train until the pup was at least 6 months of age. Not only is this not true, but it's terrible advice. The moment your dog enters your house, it is learning. From the moment that dog is born to 16 weeks of age, it is the most crucial time in the dog's life. This is known as the imprinting stage, and we want to make sure the dog is learning the things we want it to maintain as it grows into an adult. Therefore, it's essential to begin as early as possible, teaching the concepts necessary to raise a puppy into adulthood with excellent behavior. If you plan on doing advanced obedience with your dog, for example, it's a good idea to get them to enjoy that type of training at a young age. Let's say you want to do scent detection with your pup when they get older. So you'd want to start training during the imprinting stage. One example of making this training more fun for the puppy would be to make it predict something the puppy really enjoys, like the pup's favorite toy. This would create a strong positive association to the scent detection training, and it'll make it much easier to create a strong scent dog when the pup gets older. You don't have to worry about the puppy being proficient at scent detection, but you would want the puppy to love the training. That would be the main goal. This would be the same for anything else you want the puppy to excel at when they get older. For example, I enjoy teaching my dogs the basics of bite work. Because of this, I start teaching them how to bite a puppy tug when they are only 8 weeks of age. By making them enjoy the basics of bite work when they are 8 to 16 weeks old, it can easily get them to do more advanced bite work when they're older. The main idea is this: if you want them to be experts at something when they get older, make them love it when they're young puppies. Crate training is cruel. Dogs are natural den animals and crave a place of their own. If you crate train your dog correctly, as I explain and demonstrate in my How to Easily Crate Train Your Dog or Puppy, episode 24, then it should become a home away from home for them, a place of comfort. Just like we humans like to have our own bedroom, so do our dogs. This is also a very useful tool when potty training, house training, and preventing separation anxiety when you're not home. Two important crate training principles to understand. The first guideline for crate training is that you always want to make the crate a pleasant place for your dog and never a place of punishment like as a timeout or something of the sort. Giving your dog treats in the crate such as a bully stick or raw bone can help create that strong positive association. The second important guideline is to never put your dog in the crate only when you are leaving the house, or your dog will learn that the crate means you are leaving, which can create anxiety and further problems for the crate training process. Playing tug will make my dog aggressive. Proper tug play will not make a dog aggressive. In fact, I encourage people to play tug with their dogs. Playing tug can strengthen the bond, increase the dog's confidence, and it makes an excellent reward during obedience, making the training more fun and enjoyable, subsequently often causing the dog to learn faster. If you want to learn how to properly play tug with your dog, I would recommend checking out my YouTube video, The Fundamentals of Playing Tug with Your Dog. I hope everyone enjoyed today's episode. Please like and subscribe. If you need one-on-one help, I do provide Zoom training sessions. All that information will be in the description of this video. Thank you again, and I'll see you next week.